I'm your fairy godmother, honey. You? You got a problem with that?
Please welcome the one and only Whitney Houston.
I do remember the hassle of introducing black artists to MTV because, let's face it, was solely for white artists at that point.
Whitney, can we look for you in any movies in the near future or television projects?
Sure. You look, I'll be there.
Chairman Clive Davis to the podium to share her Best Album Award for The Bodyguard. The 36 Grammys turned out to be a very big night for Clive Davis. I'm Mitchell Fink, and by my count, the number of times Clive was thanked from the podium ranked second only to God.
I think I'm more nervous than I've ever been in my whole career.
I want to see the receipts from the dealer that I bought $730,000 worth of drugs. I want to see receipts.
Jimmy, Tina, when I told Diane Swire Whitney doesn't do crack, crack is cheap. Only poor people do crack. I didn't mean that in a hurtful way. Some of my best friends are poor people.
Like me.
That's right, baby.
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her. I don't think of her. Musically, what do I think of her?
Yes.
I think she's a good singer.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Lastly, hey, wait. That's mine. That's mine. Let me handle this. You better chill. You better lay low. That's it.
Other people, yes.
Now, Whitney Houston is a well-known name. Amazing songs that you will definitely know. I mean, I'm sure that you recognize most of them from that montage, right? But if you're a millennial like me, you'll probably be remembering a lot more of like the jokes that were made about her, like the press that came out about her, more than like her actual achievements and her impact on the music industry as a whole. Now, as I spoke about in my 2000s 3-part series, tearing people down, particularly women, was like the biggest kind of sport you could play in the 2000s, and Whitney Houston was definitely one of the victims of that. Like, it was relentless for her, and I think it sadly did overshadow for a lot of millennials, possibly if you're anything like me, like how amazing of an artist she actually was, because this stuff was everywhere as opposed to like her great achievements. Like, I'm sure that Gen X has got a different view of her, but from what I knew growing up, like, the Whitney that was portrayed was very different to who she actually was. And so this video, as always, is here to humanize. Now, I'm not... This is not a biography. I can't go through every single little detail of her life, and of course if I get anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. I am but one person doing this. A similar thing happened to Whitney is what happened to Amy Winehouse, where literally they go from 1 week of ripping them to shreds in the media, like everyone hating them, putting the most disgusting pictures up, like just being terrible, and then as soon as they pass away, that was all like remembering the amazingness that they were. It's like, oh yeah, funny, it's like you weren't part of the problem to begin with, huh? Anyway, if you know anything about Whitney's life, I will just leave the trigger warnings right here for you. So, addiction, miscarriage, abuse, and obviously death. So if those are too heavy for you, then I want you to have a good day. Next week I'm going to be focusing on the best things to come out of the 2000s, so it's not all just like grim stuff here. Bit of levity next week, but as you know, like for this series, like I cover one amazing woman every month, and for March you voted for Whitney, so that's who we're doing today. So without any further ado, let's get into it. You've also voted for this makeup look. This is as good a recreation as I could actually do of I Want to Dance With Somebody, the makeup she wore in that. I don't like the way this has turned out. You don't have to either. It was the 80s, it was a different time for makeup. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that, shall we? Okay, let's get on into it. Model beauty, but a better voice. Whitney was actually raised like pretty much middle class actually. She was raised in Newark, but things did get a little bit more skewed about her upbringing because they wanted her to appeal to a more like, you know, white audience, which we will be talking about later. She was born in 1963, so basically right at the boomer cutoff point in terms of like a generational divide. When she was 4, they moved into a nicer neighborhood, and honestly this girl was surrounded by incredible musical talent. Her mother, Emily Sissy Houston, who we'll be referring to as Sissy from now on, she was this incredible gospel singer, like absolutely phenomenal voice. Her first cousins are Dionne and Dee Dee Warwick, who, in case you didn't know, Dionne is actually the second most charted female singer during the rock era. She had 12 top 10s. Like, you know, Walk On By?
Hey, just walk on by, foolish ride.
That's her. And Dee Dee was an American soul singer. And then not only all of that, but her honorary aunt was Aretha Franklin. And that was because she was such close friends with Sissy, and then she became like close friends with Whitney on down the line as well. Oh, and also her godmother was Darlene Love, who is in Rolling Stone's Greatest 100 Vocalists of All Time. So you could pretty well say that she was surrounded by incredible female musical talent. Her father though could not sing, and she would sing a lot in church as well, and it was actually when she was 11 years old that she started doing solos in church. Gospel singing really was like a key fixture throughout her entire life, remaining her favourite genre of music. And also when she was a teenager, she went sometimes with her mother to actually perform at nightclubs as well. She was actually backup singer on Michael Zager Band's single Life's a Party. And then at around 16-17 years old, she was actually backup singer for Chaka Khan. She also met Robin Crawford when she was a teenager, and they became really close friends. As life went on, Robin actually became Whitney's executive assistant. So she was actually singing at Carnegie Hall, because as you do as a teenager, and she got spotted by a talent scout because, you know, obviously absolute stunning beauty, and so she became a model, even becoming like the first black woman to actually be on the cover of 17 magazine. She was in really high demand, doing all sorts of adverts as well during this time. But the thing is that she really wanted to be able to pursue music. It's like she really felt like this was a God-given talent that like she had to pursue further. But then it was actually in 1983 the right person discovered her.
Whitney was 19 at the time. It was like 7 years ago, and she was singing 2 songs in the act of her mother, Sissy. And I was impressed not only with her stunning beauty, but with that incredible gift for phrasing and that gospel roots. And indeed, right soon thereafter, I did sign Whitney to Arista, which is my company.
Though like they didn't actually create stuff until like further on down the track. So she actually sang a duet with Teddy Pendergrass called Hold Me, which you may recognize. This was like a top 5 R&B hit. Her first album actually came out in 1985. The first song wasn't really all that popular, but then So You Give Good Love was released to appeal to a black audience because that was how things were back then. Again, we're going to be talking about all of that. And it became like an R&B top hit. It was Saving All My Love For You that really got her the #1 status. And then, of course, How Will I Know became like the breakthrough song, which made everybody know who this woman was. However, like, she actually hated the way she looked in that music video. She was absolutely exhausted from like being on tour and stuff because, of course, like she was working, she was signed to a label, she was performing a lot, even though like she hadn't come out with a whole bunch of stuff. She was performing heaps, and she was so tired. She just said like, do whatever to me, whatever. And then she kind of came back to from like kind of dozing off, and like she was like, they put all these colors on me and all this hair, and her outfit was really itchy. She hated it. So even though it's one of my favorite Whitney songs, she hates the way she looks in this video.
From Sweetwater's to here, how you feeling?
I'm fine, darling. How are you?
All right.
Good.
Congratulations. How's
Thank
it
you.
feeling winning that award?
I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. I'm nervous. I'm very proud and very honored. I'm excited. It's great.
Making black accessible, but not being black enough. So in 1989, she got booed at the Soul Train Awards.
Where do broken hearts go? Whitney Houston.
And some black radio stations actually refused to play her, saying that she had completely abandoned her roots. With one person even calling her Whitey Houston. Not even making this up. The thing is that she was specifically engineered to not appear black at all, to appeal to a white audience. This is what the label wanted her to do, this is what Clive Davis wanted to do. It was all very strategically gearing her towards a white audience. I mean, would she be looking like this if she was trying to appeal to a black audience? No, she was trying to appeal to a white audience. I really think that only white people were coming up with makeup looks like this and thinking it looked good. Can't lie. We didn't want a female James Brown. They wanted a pop princess, a black Barbie of sorts. Clive Davis was actually incredibly influential throughout her entire career. And of course commercially, this worked an absolute treat. But to the black ear, these records did not have a natural feel. Arista promoter Doug Daniel said in an interview, "For the black audience, the perspective in the community was that Whitney had sold out." Now, there is actually a really fantastic article written by Deshaun Smith, which I will link for you down below. Black music consumers criticizing black pop stars places unnecessary constrictions on artists who are enduring an uphill battle to survive in an industry that's reluctant to accept their craft in the first place. These critiques negate and rewrite the long-standing history of black artists cultivating and redefining the pop music genre as we know it today. Honestly, it is a fantastically written piece full of history. It is, of course, along with everything, linked down below for you. Now, similarly, do you remember this very famous interview that Bowie did with MTV, calling them out, saying that they actually weren't playing like inclusive enough music and that everything was very much with a white focus?
I'm just floored by the fact that there's so few black artists featured on it. Why is that?
I think that we're trying to move in that direction. We want to play artists that seem to be doing music that fits into what we want to play for MTV. The company is thinking in terms of narrow casting.
That's evident. It's evident in the fact that the only few black artists that one does see are on about 2:30 in the morning or to around 6. Very few are featured predominantly during the day.
No.
So what happened was Saving All My Love For You, like a little snippet of it got played, and people were really begging MTV to play this song. But of course MTV's like, we want to play what people will pay for because, you know, apparently only white people have money and only white people matter. Yeah, gotta love the 80s, right? Oh, if you really want like a fantastic deep dive on the 80s as well, check out Intellectual Media's channel. Like, I absolutely adore their work. It's so good. But the thing is that they had so many requests that they absolutely had to put the song on, which actually made Whitney more popular, of course, rightly so. And she said in an interview with MTV later on,
"What do you remember about your own first music videos on MTV?
Ooh.
Do you remember the first time you saw one of your own clips on the channel?
Yeah. I remember trying very hard to get You Give Good Love on MTV, and they weren't accepting it because it was very, very R&B kind of song. And then I remember coming up with Saving All My Love For You, and it hit so hard and exploded so heavy that they had no choice but to play it. I love it when they have no choice. I love it. I love it.
Honestly, you relish in that, like seriously. After all of the BS that she got given, trying to just like appease white people the whole time. But then of course, Hell I Know was peaking the charts and there was no escaping the power of Whitney Houston. And one thing that you'll really notice about Whitney is the fact that she's rarely seen with her natural hair. Like, you can see in her modeling days and her gospel days, like she would wear her natural hair, but as soon as like she got signed to a label, it was like there were so many wigs and hair pieces. Like, they were really trying to make sure that she catered to a white audience as much as possible, because I think her natural hair is 4C, I believe, but please do correct me if I'm wrong. But she really was getting criticism that she was forgetting about her black roots. But the thing is that Whitney was a really smart businesswoman and she just wanted to be able to get ahead, and she did what she had to do in order to be able to do that. She had to play the game, and of course, like, the people that controlled the game, much like the way it is today, because white supremacy still does like rule the world, right? She had to do what would appeal to a white audience. I mean, hell, you can even look at how they marketed Mariah Carey and just tried to like make her look as white as possible. That's a separate topic though. But anyway, like, there's just a lot of racism that kind of has run the music industry for many years. It was actually only really in her third album that she got to express more of her artistic freedom, which the album got labelled as being urban because that is, like, of course, a very coded word that I'm sure that you're snapping back to if you're part of the older generation that remembers that. But because of like what happened in 1991 with her being able to prove her worth, with singing the national anthem, with what happened with I Will Always Love You, like with the fact that she managed to prove her success and prove that people would listen to her, that kind of allowed a bit more artistic freedom down the line, but she really did have to toe the line and look ridiculous like with this in order to be able to get somewhere. But of course, like with that national anthem, we'll be talking about it a bit separately because it did leave a bad taste in some people's mouths though, but it also made her an absolute patriotic icon. Now, double consciousness is not a phrase that I can relate to. I mean, obviously. So I'm going to use the words of W.E.B. Du Bois, and I triple checked on how to pronounce that name. It refers to the dual mindset of marginalized people, such as like Black Americans in the US, who must both retain their Black identity and also be able to see themselves through the eyes of the oppressor. Two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. I could never. Wow. Now look, obviously I can't speak for others and give my own opinion here. She was also someone that paved the way for people like Janet Jackson even, and so many other people to be able to actually get their foot in the door. In order to be able to get your foot through the door of white supremacy, you have to follow their rules. And it's a sad fact that still does exist today. It truly is such a double-edged sword that I don't think that we've really escaped from, honestly, despite like how progressive people think things have become. But like the thing is, if you actually watch her interviews, like I've seen a ridiculous amount of them, as I always do for these videos, like she is always talking about artists. She makes such a point to make sure that you know about amazing emerging Black artists that people should know about, and she called people up, including people like Brandy. She had a really close relationship with Lauryn Hill before Lauryn Hill actually became Lauryn Hill. Like she was very hell-bent on making sure that she was also talking up and propping up other Black creators to make sure that their work was heard and seen and incorporated into her own work, including the projects that she would involve herself in. Like, you know, The Bodyguard, that was like a blockbuster film that actually showed an interracial couple. Now that was incredibly significant given the timing of it. Like, it's bizarre looking back on it now, the fact that that would be such a big deal. And people did actually have a problem with the poster for the fact that it wasn't really showing the fact that it was dealing with an interracial couple, and the fact that that romance wasn't done in a more negative light. It was actually done as like an actual romance of them both, as opposed to him just fetishizing her, you know? Sure, the acting in that movie is not great, but it gave us I Will Always Love You, which I Will Always Love You was also kind of like a last minute thing. They weren't really expecting to do it. And yes, Dolly Parton did write the song, but as I talked about in my Dolly Parton video, Dolly was thrilled with what Whitney did to that song. She was so happy with it, like it brought her to tears. And personally, I just find it incredible seeing what people can do given the same words, like how different that can become depending on which artist you give it to, because both of them are artists in their own right. And I don't think it's actually fair to compare the two songs, because even though the words are the same, they're conveying such different messages. It's, ugh, both are amazing. I'm not going to pick a favourite. I don't recommend you do either. And also, it was actually sadly during filming for The Bodyguard that she suffered from her first miscarriage publicly, but the press were talking about it before she even talked about it, and she was really hurt by that. Even talking on Barbara Walters about it, and you know my view on Barbara Walters.
Rumors that you'd had a miscarriage during the filming of The Bodyguard, and one day you said in an interview, someday I'll straighten that out. You don't have to, but is it something you'd like to straighten out?
I had a miscarriage during the filming of The Bodyguard. It was very painful. Emotionally and physically. It's something that I would have liked to have said myself, but they didn't give me the opportunity. I was back on the set the next day. And it's over. But I have Bobby Christina 1 year later, and I am blessed.
And also she involved herself with the film Waiting to Exhale, which if you follow me on Instagram and watch my stories, then you'll know my views on it already. It's a fantastic movie about female friendship, and it's honestly so rarely listed on like chick flick lists. Like, I know it's aimed at females, and I know that people typically think less of media that's aimed at females, which I've already talked about in my misogyny of the rom-com. It is so good. I'm adding that to my list, and I'm going to rewatch it again and again. The characters are really well rounded. Their friendship is honestly infectious. And I'm sorry, also the attitude towards female pleasure in 1995, like, wow. Like, I was genuinely cackling at parts of this movie. I don't want to spoil it because I want you to go watch it. It's available on Disney Plus right now. But Whitney specifically really wanted to be involved in this because it actually wasn't involving stereotypes. Like, how many movies are made, even still to this very day, featuring an all-female cast, which isn't just about them suffering and having friendship through all of this suffering and being owned by people. How many movies featuring an all-black cast are not just about reliving trauma, because that still very much is a problem today. The funniest thing about that movie as well is the fact that it was considered to be male bashing. I watched this interview with the whole cast on Oprah. It's actually about navigating relationships and dealing with that with female friendship. And yes, it is definitely of its time, so just bear that in mind. It's from the 90s, but I will still argue that 90s movies beat out 2000s movies when it comes to bad stereotypes and bad words, okay? Now, the soundtrack purposefully had an all-black cast as well, and it was produced by Babyface, and it was a best-selling soundtrack as well. Like, no, really, like, the songs on this are amazing. And also, she not only starred in but produced 1997 Cinderella, which I've talked about on this channel before, and she was originally, like, she owned the rights for such a long time. She was originally going to play Cinderella herself, but then she picked Brandy to actually play Cinderella.
With Brandy, who is just the most adorable.
My Cinderella.
And I know that they originally had, we would have talked about this, but you weren't on my show. But you were supposed to play Cinderella first.
Yeah.
And then you said, no, this isn't for me, this is for Brandy,
No,
right?
this one's for Brandy.
Yeah. And you called her up, and what was she?
did.
Was she
I
a little
said,
shocked?
will you play Cinderella for me? And she said, yes! And she was screaming and excited, and she said, only if you play my godmother. And I said, okay, we'll do it.
And you guys did it so well, and Whoopi is in it,
I waited
who
a long
just
time to
adore.
do this, I want you to know. I waited 4 years to do this project the way that it should be done. I mean, we had interracial cast and everything, you know. They had other ideas, but I had mine. So
Bernadette
this
Peters,
is great.
Whoopi Goldberg, it's such a great show.
Very, very cute. I really like that rendition of Cinderella. I think it's so great. And Whitney, because she had such controlling power, she really wanted it to be done right. She really wanted to have such diverse cast. She really wanted the vision to come to life, and it absolutely did. And not only that, but she also produced The Princess Diaries and The Cheetah Girls. Like, Whitney was an incredibly busy businesswoman and did things that I don't think a lot of people really realize. And not only that, she was famously a supporter of Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement, and then she also did a number of charity gigs throughout her life as well. So let's have a quick chat about why she was called The Voice. So you know singers like Ariana Grande, Celine Dion and Mariah Carey for their vocal range and prowess, but Whitney really was the voice, like capital T, capital V. Like, she used and popularized this technique called melisma. You know, like when singers do this little dance when they're singing a same syllable.
And
you know the I in I Will Always Love You? Like, she uses and controls this method really well. She doesn't overuse it. Whitney really did use the instrument of her voice incredibly well. Like, she worked it very hard. You know how hopefuls typically will try and sing like I Will Always Love You, or they'll sing My Heart Will Go On. They'll sing like one of the absolute classics to show off their range, and then they overdo melisma and it doesn't sound right. But when Whitney did it, it always sounded very purposeful. Yeah, like that's kind of the difference, and she popularized this technique. I'm not saying that she was the creator of it, I'm saying that she popularized it, and pop music was never the same since. But like, you know, I Will Always Love You, they were actually scared to put that on the radio because there was too much silence. Yeah, that song which carried her for like a good 3 years in popularity for her career. Yeah, no, people were never going to be sick of hearing that song, especially not on the radio. And that just kind of like changed things again, because it showed that people didn't need to have like all this loud whiz bang the whole time, you know? Like, that song has such meaning, and she's saying it with such meaning. Like, she really did emote her music. And she said in another interview like how she had to connect with the music to be able to do it, to be able to perform it, and she was a romantic herself.
And the song is beautiful.
Thank you.
Are you that romantic when you,
Oh, yeah.
singing it? Are you really the romantic person behind it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Without faking?
Without faking it, honey.
There is no faking romance. If you're romantic, you are. If you're not, you're not. I am a romantic person. I don't think that I could sing ballads the way that I do or feel them the way that I do unless I did have a side of romance inside of me. I think that everybody loves romance, whether they admit it or not. Everybody loves to be romantic, sure.
She earned 2 Emmy Awards, 8 Grammy Awards, including Record and Album of the Year wins, 14 World Music Awards, 16 Billboard Music Awards, 22 American Music Awards, 28 entries within the Guinness World Records. She was inducted into the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame in 2014 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020. She's one of the most awarded artists of all time and one of the highest earning female artists of all time. And also she had like long strings of being like top of the charts as well in music like throughout her whole career. And with good reason, right? Like you saw that montage I did at the start of this video, right? Like I didn't spend 3 hours on that for nothing. I think so. Editing me can verify how long it took. But this had a huge ripple effect for other black artists to actually be able to be heard and actually get platformed on MTV too. Let's have a quick chat about Star Spangled Banner and her rewriting the national anthem in a way. Like her singing this was a big deal.
A Super Bowl that almost didn't happen. It is the first week of the first Gulf War.
Seeing sharpshooters up on the top on the press box, to see the helicopters with the guns out, you knew that there was a lot more going on than just the Super Bowl.
But also like it's a really hard song to sing because of the timing, and honestly we've seen far more fails of it than success. But Whitney kind of like set the bar on how it's done. Like her whole goal was to give hope. Like she could feel everything around her and she just really wanted to do this well, and she knocked it out the park to say the least. Like she effectively wore the American flag, and this became such an anthem of the national anthem that it was used again in 2001. Like we've talked before about how it's a little bit challenging dealing with the national anthem. This is another reason why some black people actually had a bit of an issue with her, because she was effectively being like this black woman being the ultimate patriot, singing a song from a country that is on stolen land, a country which was built on the back of slaves, a country that has started wars in many countries. And then she was the one that was actually singing this and giving all of these people hope. It's complicated, okay? Like you can like stuff and critique it at the same time. I'm sure that I've offended some people with pointing this out, but the US has a lot of issues, okay? But like the thing is that she did the job right. She gave everyone chills. Like everyone still to this very day looks back on that performance and just heralds it as the best thing ever. We should talk about Bobby Brown and hug use now, shouldn't we? A lot gets blamed on Bobby Brown, saying that he was the one that got her into candy use. However, she was having candy before he came along. He was more into dried herbs, but then he also had a sweet tooth too. I am being very censored here. Yes, you're quite right. Now the thing is that nobody actually thought that they were a real couple. When they met at the Soul Train Music Awards in 1989, the same one that she got booed at, she was accidentally hitting him in the head when she was standing up talking to someone, and she invited him to her birthday party as a form of apology and so that they could become friends. And then they got married at her estate in 1992, very lavishly as well, like wow. But also like this woman had worked her butt off. Like I think that you deserve it. If this is what you actually really want, go off. Like, she had such a squeaky clean image. Like, I can't even explain how much control they had over her image. And this was actually probably quite purposeful in order to be able to make her appeal to, let's face it, a white audience. But people doubted their relationship would last even when they got married. Like, she would overhear people taking bets on this. Like, it was, nobody thought that they could ever last. Whitney, of course, like, as you probably know, like, was incredibly religious. So it's like the whole stand by your man mentality was very, very true for her. Their marriage really did last for so many years, ultimately ending in the 2000s when there were some incidents, shall we say. She's talked about it in an Oprah interview. I can't include many of the clips here, but I will link the interview with Oprah down below. I recommend watching all of it. It's like an hour and a half, but it's definitely worthwhile watching. In the sightings of them together, in the way that she talked about him, she would turn up to pick him up from jail. Like, she really did stand by him. And even in the terrible Bobby Brown TV show, which I'm going to be talking about in just a moment, like, you could definitely see glimpses of how much they really loved each other. Like, I'm not denying the fact that they were in love because it's quite obvious. But there were definitely issues in the relationship. He more recently has come to blame Whitney for getting him into candy because he liked his dried herbs. But the thing is that they would have dried herbs and candy together and inhale it. That was what they did. Hence the impact it had on her voice, sadly, because that was happening every day for a very long time.
When did the drugs start?
All right, before the bodyguard, we were just, it was very light. After the bodyguard, I had Chrissy, it started getting heavy. But he liked to drink. I was a drinker. The alcoholism, that's an ugly thing. Either you're going to be a really nice alcoholic or you're a really mean one.
So his personality would become altered when he drank?
She was saying that it was after the bodyguard that their relationship really changed. And that is quite early on into their relationship. Like, no one thought it could actually have that much of an impact that early on, since they remained together and so close for so long. But the thing is that because I Will Always Love You and her stardom took the world by such force, she was the one that people wanted to see, not Bobby Brown.
He loved me. We fought hard. We loved hard. And I think at some point in time, other things began to take place.
Was he jealous of you?
He's not going to like this, but yes.
And then did you try to overcompensate?
I tried to play down all the time. I did. I tried to play, I'm Mrs. Brown, everybody. Don't call me Miss Houston, I'm Mrs. Brown.
And he was a celebrity in his own right, so of course this would hurt your male pride, your ego, you know, like this would hurt anyone. And he had to take a back seat to her, so he was jealous. Now, Sissy did really try and help her. She even got law enforcement involved. But the thing is, after this Oprah interview, like, she was finally not afraid about what Bobby would say or do about her.
Okay, so did Bobby know you were doing that interview?
No.
Does he know now?
No.
No? No.
But I'm sure I'll be getting a call.
Yeah. Are you worried about that call?
Really sad that she had to wait until 2009 to not be afraid of him. Like, I think that's honestly heartbreaking. Obviously, you and I will never actually know the truth about what happened in their relationship or the full relationship to hugs and candy. Like, none of us will really be able to know that. And honestly, so many truths have come out from so many people that contradict each other. I don't really think it's worthwhile like speculating on this when we should be actually celebrating and looking at like all of the work that she did and gave everyone, because this is just distracting. And honestly, it was the fame that was getting to her that actually even took her down this path to begin with as like a coping mechanism. Maybe actually reassessing the way that we treat people who get thrust into the starlight and have no privacy, no respect given to them, and just expected to always be on call to perform for people. Like, maybe that should be what we're thinking about, as opposed to criticizing people that fell prey to, you know, really bad things to help them cope with like the reality that they were now thrust within, you know? The press really had a big thing about attacking both Whitney and Bobby Brown, and there was of course a lot of racism in this attacking, right? Like, do you remember how Amy Winehouse was targeted, as I talked about in that other video? Like, it really was just everyone hating on her. She would deny and deny and deny, and then sometimes we'd be like vulnerable with people who I refer to as white snakes in the grass, like Diane Sawyer and Barbara Walters, because they look like they're out to help you and care for you and stuff, meanwhile at the same time just judging you quite openly and leading the audience to judge you. Ooh, I've got so many problems with weaponizing white womanhood, because that's really what it is. Like, her voice was so impacted by the dry herbs and candy, and this did impact like the way that she was performing in the 2000s. And so of course, because we had like fun little phones, we could just record all this stuff and put it up on YouTube, which funnily enough the press had a big problem with, you know, the fact that the public were actually talking about this stuff. And they went to say it's because of the average people uploading content to YouTube that's causing the problem. Oh yeah, like your entire business is not built up on destroying others. Sure. People sharing their favorite moments from like concerts, or literally just sharing clips from concerts. Do you remember when we could do that on YouTube? Wow. Yeah, early YouTube days, huh? But the thing is that she got a vocal coach. She really did try. Like she went to rehab. She did try. None of us know what she was dealing with really behind the scenes. None of us can really comment on that. The vocal coach helped get her voice to like 70 to 80% of what it was in the past. But even like her friends and stuff were like, oh yeah, like the person's a good singer, but that's not Whitney. And it's like, my God, this whole expectation on people to just never change and always stay in their prime, like I think that is a huge issue, because like she went from like a 19-year-old to a 48-year-old and people are like, you've changed. Yeah, I hope I'm not the same way that I was when I was 19. My God. But with all of the issues that she was dealing with the hug use, with just everything, with the divorce, everything, like she would be cancelling shows kind of last minute. And when she was performing, like she said this throughout her whole career, the fact that she would rather cancel going on stage rather than giving people like not what they paid for. Like that was kind of her attitude to performing. And so this must have really been eating her up, because if you're known for having this amazing voice and then people are saying that you can't sing, that you sound terrible, like how much that would really just eat away at you. And the press were putting up all of these terribly unflattering photos. Oof. Anyway, let's just talk about the mistreatment of her in the media, because I really want to get there, as you can very clearly tell.
The LA Times, they said, the pain and frankly disgust that so many pop fans felt during Houston's decline was caused not so much by her personal distress as by her seemingly careless treatment of the national treasure that happened to reside within her. Wow. The national treasure. Heavy. Heavy. I understand what they're saying.
Now, Whitney was unapologetically herself, but she did definitely become more cagey and less trusting as time went on, and you can see it very clearly in the interviews.
And every time I say ask you something, it's a rumor. Nothing real? But I read, all right, let me rephrase that. Okay. I have read that you were going to do film. Yeah. With your lover, Robert De Niro. Donnie, you ain't right at all.
Girl, I got four. Watch out. I got four. You funny.
Because you support me, and you've been good to me on the radio. However, watch what you say, baby girl.
But Whitney, watch what you do. And if
I know it's not. You don't even know what I do. Like you said, you never met me. You don't know me. You ain't been in my house. You don't live with me. You don't sleep with me. You don't do shit with me, but talk about me. So watch what you say. That's all, baby girl. That's all I'm asking you is watch what the you say.
But Whitney,
what, baby?
I would love to have you come in the studio.
Okay, love. We'll make a date. You call my machine, I'll call yours.
Like the constant invasiveness of questions, people feeling like they were owed like explanations from her for everything, and the press just tearing her apart as a person rather than focusing on her work. The thing is that she always had her boundaries, and she was always very firm with that, which is like very admirable.
When you were making it, did you find a lot of the cast were trading like dating horror stories during the production?
There were moments when the ladies and I would sit and talk for hours and hours, but that's between us. That's something that we shared in our private time. Now, what you see on screen is what you're supposed to get, and that's it.
Let's put it like this. We're here to talk about Exhale. My life is none of your business.
I'm gonna try one more time.
Okay. All right.
Just tell us how Bobby is. Just straighten out for us. What do we read in the tabloids versus what is true? How is Bobby? How are y'all doing?
We're doing fine. Bobby is fine. And that's all I want to say.
And that's all she wants to say.
Yeah. Especially in a time where celebrities were just meant to be like entertainers the whole time and just perform on cue whenever. As opposed to being viewed as real people. Like when she actually took a break from touring and came back in 1998, like the attitude towards her had already shifted, and people were like, oh, what about the hug use? Like, why haven't you been going on tour? Like, Whitney, I don't really think that people quite realize like how much this woman really worked early on in her career. She was constantly on tour, constantly away, and she wanted to be able to be with her daughter. It's like she wanted to be able to actually like live her life a little bit, and it's hecking overwhelming. I can't even imagine what it would be like going from city to city, country to country, everywhere, all the time. Like, that's very overwhelming, and she's said multiple times, like, no one can prepare you for fame. Like, none of us can actually understand what that would be like. Like, she used to try and laugh off the tabloids, but when it was actually impacting Bobby Christina, like, that was when she really got obviously upset about it, as I would too. Like, I hate it. Like, you know me, I don't like kids on the internet at the best of times, but can you imagine just like the press like constantly taking pictures of your child? Because of course this is the 2000s when boundaries were just not a thing. So yeah, oof, makes me really angry on her behalf. This Diane Sawyer interview is incredibly famous, and for good reason, not on Diane's part, not putting her in a good light. When Whitney was actually performing at the 2001 tribute concert for Michael Jackson, like, Diane Sawyer had printed out like pictures of this and was showing Whitney. I will just let the clip play. You need to see this.
VH1 up here. I'm going to show you the picture.
Well, that's a bad shot.
Well, it may be a bad shot, but this is real. I mean, the bones, that's real.
Yeah, my bones, yeah. I'm 5'7" and thin. I can understand what you mean.
But that's not just thin.
No, what is it? Diane, tell me. Do you know?
It's scary thin.
I can believe what you feel. I can believe that. But do you really know? Do you really know?
No, you know.
Thank you.
Whitney bites back, very understandably. I would too. My gosh. And in that same interview, this a very famous line came out saying that crack is whack.
Because that sparked that whole thing where the headlines were saying, Whitney is dying.
No, Whitney was dead.
Whitney dying. Crack rehab fails.
First of all, let's get one thing straight. Crack is cheap. I'd make too much money to ever smoke crack. Let's get that straight, okay? We don't do crack. We don't do that. Crack is whack.
But because a lot of this was happening in the late 2000s to 2010s, this was the time of like meme culture and edgelords and comedians thinking that everything could be made into a joke, and it's like, oh, this is actually disgusting behavior. And so people were making terrible jokes in order to try and stay relevant and be edgy and all of the other stuff that I've talked about in my 2000 series.
Your favorite song, sung by America's sweetheart, Whitney Houston.
Come on, Day. I need my fix.
Remember the deal, Whitney. First you sing, then you get your precious...
How dare you? Do you think I would? No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity.
Happy anniversary, sweetheart.
Come on, Whitney, go get it.
I know that people still to this day say that anything could be a joke, but the thing is, like, if your goal is to make people laugh, if you have to destroy people in order to be able to do that, like, you're actually just not funny, you're just mean. Let's talk about this terrible reality TV show, Being Bobby Brown. Alliteration, I see what you did there. This was probably the biggest mistake that they could have done in terms of Whitney's reputation and her career and everything. And even just for her own mental state, honestly. Because of course this is the 2000s and everyone had their own reality TV show as well, don't forget that fact. This was Bobby Brown's reality TV show, you know, putting it back on him, get the attention back on him, and so she could be the dutiful wife and do what he wanted her to do, because that was how she figured it, like she did this for him. But the thing is, Whitney Houston was way more entertaining to watch, so the cameras would focus on her. It was kind of like a constant hit piece on Whitney.
Can I take a picture with you? No. No. Ma'am, I'm eating. You see me eating? Sorry. I'll take a picture with you. She's jealous.
It's all right.
She's a sister. I don't want to mess with her.
The whole focus of the cameras was to make Whitney look like a loose cannon, like a train wreck, like she was unpredictable, like she was falling apart, basically making her look like a crackhead. Even their relationship, like they would joke a lot together, like even in the first episode, like apparently what happened was he actually told everyone that he had to get some of her business out of her butt, and she was mortified at this. Like, he had no boundaries with how much, like, hatred he quite clearly had for her. Like I said, sometimes it's really sweet seeing their connection, but at other times, like, it's so purposeful to make her look like a fool, and it's really disgusting. Like, throughout the episodes, Bobby was quite openly bashing her. I mean, not in real life, but later, like she attacked him too. I'm not saying that either of them were perfect people, but like the whole show just had a vendetta against her. It only went for 1 season, which I'm grateful for. Like, I can't imagine how terrible that would have been if it went for 2 seasons. But the thing is, you know, nothing makes people happier than tearing down famous people. You know, the whole tall poppy syndrome? It's really toxic in Aotearoa in particular. Like, if anyone's proud of their work, like, oof, no, people do not like you here. Like, it's really gross. I don't like it. This is possibly one of the most triggering parts, just a bit of a warning. We're about death quite a bit here. The disgusting party that happened as she passed away. You may have either forgotten about this or just plain didn't know, as I definitely didn't. Like, you know that I do not like to talk about how people passed away. Like, that is not what these videos are about. Whitney sadly passed away in her bathtub at 3:55 p.m. on the 11th of February in 2012. Like, even in early interviews I've watched of her, like, she really enjoyed taking a bath. Like, same, me too. It's one of those simple pleasures in life that's just so relaxing and lovely. But at the same time, her employees for the longest time wouldn't allow her to take a bath for risk of drowning. And so the people that were with her at the time, they didn't stop her, and she'd been left alone for an hour. You get the picture. Anyway, this was at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and that night it was to be the pre-Grammy party that she was actually meant to be performing at, which went ahead. This is when she was literally 4 floors above them. Like, before her body was even cold and taken to the coroner, they were partying downstairs. So you had all of the press waiting at the red carpet to welcome people, and then they were running around the back to try and get footage of her body leaving the building. Like, that was the event. And it kind of got turned into a tribute while she was still warm upstairs. Like, now, Chaka Khan in an interview actually spoke up about this.
Apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. And knowing Whitney, I don't believe that she would have said, the show must go on. She was the kind of woman that would say, stop everything. I'm not going to be there. You know, I don't know what could motivate a person to have a party.
This is a perfectly morbid example of how showbiz actually is. They build you up, they watch and gawk at you fall, and before you're even cold, they're making it about themselves with how much you've impacted their lives whilst they sip champagne and pat each other on the back. Ugh. Sorry, this is maybe too angry. I need a moment. Sorry, I really needed a moment there. So here's my final thoughts. So Whitney was such an influential figure, and it really does just sadden me, like, how much of the press, the media, the attitude, the jokes towards her in the 2000s really did color my view of her and made me see her as like 2 separate people, kind of. And I'm really sad about that, and honestly, in doing the research for this video, it's just given me even more of an appreciation of like who she was, what she achieved, and I think that is definitely something that should get celebrated. It's only because of songs like what's just come out, like Higher Love, like that song that was only released on like 1 Japanese album, like that she's even coming back into the fray, and it's like I really hope that more things come out like that too, because this was managed by her estate, and her estate were the ones that did that, so it's okay. But what I'm saying is, like, I really wish that more people were able to actually like understand the significance of her and celebrate her, as opposed to like just focus on the tragedy of it all and like how she destroyed herself. And it's like so many people all the time kept on saying that she was her biggest demon, and it's like, I don't know, I kind of would contribute it to a lot of different things that we've been talking about in this video, including the press, big time. List your favorite Whitney song down below. Please also go and watch Waiting to Exhale. It's on Disney Plus if you want to go check it out. Such a good female friendship movie. I really like it. Or if you haven't yet, watch 1997 Cinderella with her and Brandy in it. So good. But yeah, let me know what your favorite song is. Like, her own favorite song was actually Yesterday, but her own favorite song of her own recording was The Greatest Love of All. That was her favorite. But anyway, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the microphone emoji. I think it's only right and fair that we give her her voice back. But yeah, I hope that you love this, enjoyed this. Next week I'm going to be doing something a bit more lighthearted. We're covering like the best things that came out of the 2000s. As like a way to round out the series. It wasn't all bad, just enough of it for 3 videos. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you again soon. Bye!